to force me into this mayor's race. I'm like, I don't want to do it.
I don't think we need to. Okay.
I'm a little worried about it, Nate.
Good morning. It's just after 9 a.m. and all the trustees are here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you and welcome to our St. Petersburg College Trustees Workshop. As you all are aware, we generally don't have a meeting in July, but because of some of the budget changes with respect to insurance, our evolving situation with our strategic plan because of COVID, and then probably most importantly, our Collegiate High School reentry plan. After our last meeting, the state informed us that the board needed to formally approve a reentry plan before the students could return to school. And their return is scheduled, well, was previously scheduled prior to our August date, but we'll hear more about that today. So hopefully we can move through these things pretty quickly, spend some time on the financial aspect at the end of the meeting as well. So with that, we will dive in. Just so you all who may be watching know, we are obviously social distanced, and as I look in the crowd, our team is respectfully sitting apart and with masks on, so we appreciate that. All of the equipment has been sterilized, and so when you speak at the podium, there are wipes up there, and please, before or after or both, you give your presentation, please take some time to prepare the podium for the next speaker. So with that, Ms. Metz.
Nope. Okay. So you have the plan in front of you, I assume. There it is. There we go. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Cole, members of the board, and Dr. Williams. Wasn't sure if you wanted it on or off. I'm Starla Metz, the AVP of Collegiate High Schools. Thank you for the opportunity to bring forth the St. Petersburg Collegiate High Schools Innovative Reopening Plan and a proposed calendar delaying the start of the school year for sophomores for your review and approval. The Florida Department of Education Executive Order 2020-EO-06 requires the opening of brick and mortar schools beginning in August for all students, subject to the advice and orders of the Florida Department of Health, local departments of health, and Executive Order 20-149 and subsequent orders. Furthermore, this order allows charter schools the flexibility to provide an additional instructional option to students who may have an underlying health condition, or to students whose parents may not feel comfortable sending their child to school due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The order also waives strict adherence to a fixed opening and end date for schools, the requirement to operate schools for 180 days or the instructional hourly equivalent, and the reporting requirements for educational planning and information is set forth in statutes, as well as provides financial continuity for schools who submit an innovative reopening plan that is approved by the sponsoring district. Okay. You have it in front of you. In addition to SPC's comeback plan, the collegiate high schools will implement additional safety protocols to ensure the wellness of our staff and students. Things such as daily temperature checks for our sophomores prior to entering the building, staggered dismissal times to promote social distancing, and a parent acknowledgement form denoting their responsibility to ensure that their child is well by using SPC's symptom checker self-assessment tool. St. Petersburg Collegiate High School's reopening plan addresses all of the 6 assurances required in the plan. The first assurance, if you want to go to the keep going, there you go, just so they can see, keep going, keep going. Keep going. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. So the first assurance ensures that we open for students who wish to attend school in person 5 days a week. And this part of the plan details the first assurance to open brick and mortar schools. The next assurance is offering a full array of services required by law. We are also required to offer robust progress monitoring and tiered support for students who are not making adequate progress. We also need to work with our individual education plan teams to ensure students with disabilities are identified and receive the services and support that they need. And we need to meet with our English Language Learners Committee to ensure students who are English language learners receive the support instruction they need to be successful in the classroom. Finally, we need to make sure that we are sharing progress monitoring data with the district. And you'll also notice that SPC's comeback plan is at the very end of our plan because we will be following all of SPC's policies and protocols to ensure the wellness of our staff and students. We are offering for our sophomores 2 learning options. The first option is, of course, coming to school and having in-classroom instruction. And the second option is remote learning. And we have purchased a new system called Polycom Studio, which is a video conferencing system for all of our classrooms. And this system allows our faculty to simultaneously teach our in-class students and our remote learners at the same time. So our remote learners really have an authentic, high-quality experience and the instruction that our students that are coming to school will enjoy. It also allows for our students to work collaboratively in Zoom breakout rooms and to get some support and individual tutoring if they should need that. But it's a really wonderful system, and we're very excited about the possibility of doing that. The other benefit of that system is, should the number of COVID-19 cases rise in the fall and we have a spike, we can seamlessly transition to that system, and our students will still enjoy a robust educational experience. For students who are coming to school, should they be ill or be exposed to symptoms of COVID-19, they can easily log on to the remote learning via My Courses. For students who are remote learners and decide maybe after a while that they would like to come on campus, they will contact the principal so we can ensure social distancing is in place prior to welcoming them to the school. Our juniors and seniors will be enrolled in all college classes and follow the college calendar. And all of our extracurricular events, such as our mental health lessons, our weekly seminars, our clubs, our activities, our parent workshops, our PTSA and SAC meetings will all be held remotely via Zoom so that we can make sure our parents and our students are engaging with us and with each other. And then finally, I would like to propose that we adopt, or you approve, a revised calendar pushing back the start date just for our sophomores to August 17th, which is aligned with SPC's start date. That will allow us a little more time for our faculty to have some professional development on the new video conferencing system and ensure we are well prepared to offer high-quality education to all of our students. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you. Any questions?
You're welcome.
We appreciate it, and we can't.
And workshops, you're not voting, is my understanding.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
vote in the workshop. You have to bring it back to the
Yes. So I think that without any questions, we can give you the assurance that we'll approve this in August.
But will the
at
meeting be before August 17th?
It's the 19th.
Chair
We-
Cole, that is absolutely fine with the district. They
It
are
is?
aware
Okay.
that we normally do not have a meeting in July. And
Okay.
so
Did we
that is not
notice
a
the
problem at
workshop?
all. They are fine with that. They just wanted me to bring it forth to be sure
No,
that
did
the
we
board
notice
had
this
seen the
workshop?
plan and they were
Perfect.
comfortable with the plan and the proposed calendar.
Yeah, we
Thank
could-
you.
the chair
We
could-
do have another
The
business
chair
item.
could take the
Yeah.
vote. I was just saying, if we notice the workshop, it is a public item, and so
Yeah,
people are.
we did
like-
notice the
So,
workshop,
so
right?
you could, where's our lawyer?
There's Ms. Gardner.
Oh, Ms. Gardner, I think we could take a vote on that, since it's a time sensitive, as long as, a time sensitive issue, and we could, the other issues we wouldn't be able to vote on, but since it was noticed to the public, I think you can do that.
Yes, the workshop was noticed as a public workshop. I think we noted we weren't going to take up general business, but I think as long as we go ahead and confirm at the general business meeting, the board could vote, but the official vote would be at
Yeah.
the general board
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
I would feel better about that, to give
Okay.
you all some confidence to go back to the board to say, the board voted and will ratify that at its general business meeting. Would that,
Yeah,
is there
I have a motion that we accept the Collegiate High School's reopening plan.
Second.
any comments? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
And can we just make a note to add in our consent agenda for August to ratify this vote? Thank you. Okay, Dr. Crawford. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Williams. It's nice to see your faces in actual faces.
It is.
As opposed to in Zoom boxes. Sabrina Crawford, I'm the AVP of Institutional Effectiveness and Academic Services, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about our planning objectives for our 2021-2024 new strategic plan development. So I just wanted to start off with a reminder of how much work we spent over the last 3 years of developing our 3 pillars and our 2 foundational elements of financial vitality and employee engagement, and our pillars of academic excellence, economic mobility, and community engagement. I'm proud to say that when we re-looked at these 5 elements of our current strategic plan, they still hold very strongly as we move forward into our next development of our strategic plan. We are very fortunate to have been able to acquire the services of Madeline Pomeriega, who is our strategic plan development expert, who will be coming to help us develop our next strategic plan. She currently is the Executive Vice President and Provost at Tallahassee Community College, and you probably know her best as serving as the Chancellor of the Florida College System for 3 years. She's developed both the Florida College System strategic plan during that time. She worked with the Florida Department of Education leadership team that developed their strategic plan. And most recently, she's worked with 3 different Florida College System institutions, 2 of which have actually become Aspen Prize finalists, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. So in speaking with our new expert, she kind of outlined what she foresees as kind of an overview of what she's hoping to accomplish over the next 6 months. So during this presentation, I'm just going to provide you that brief overview. You can expect sometime between now and your next board meeting that you'll be receiving a survey. And this survey is going to be designed to really understand your priorities. What are the key elements that you want to make sure that are addressed by the strategic plan? I'm not touching anything. Touched by the strategic plan, and kind of have framework around our strategic plan. In August, after your board meeting, my understanding is that there will also be a workshop, during which time she's going to be meeting with you, sharing what she's learned about your survey results, what those priorities are, and giving you a full layout of how she plans on moving forward. Because during September and November, this is when she's going to be working with leadership, different groups across the college, to really flesh out all of those areas. And I think that her idea is that she wants to make sure that all of these priorities, all of the metrics that you're going to be looking at are really aligned to whatever these pillars and whatever the foundational elements are that end up being designed. And then in December, obviously, she'll bring forward the final plan for your approval moving forward. So we talked a little bit about her work in regards to the Aspen Prize. And so if you're not aware of this, this is the Community College Excellence Prize. This is one of those most sought-after prizes that community colleges across the nation try to achieve. Unfortunately, SPC has not been in the running until this last round because of its status within the Carnegie classification. We were finally actually in the pool for the very first time, and we were able to see how we kind of align ourselves and how we're able to look at where we fit in with the rest of the colleges that do become finalists. They look at all of the colleges, they look at all of the different data. They really focus in on 5 key priorities, which you can barely see on that slide, but they include leadership and teaching and data and all of the things that you would expect good community colleges to be focused on when they're looking at trying to help our graduates move and achieve social mobility. So the Aspen Prize chooses 150 finalists, and then they move into 10 that actually can apply for the Aspen Prize itself. Madeline would like to be able to use the tenets of the Aspen Prize as a background of our development of our strategic plan, because she feels that we're in a good position to kind of focus our area. They do this every 2 years, so it's completely in line with the next round as we build towards our achievement. And just to kind of give you an idea, There are several colleges who have already, in the Florida college system, who have achieved this. They've had winners from Indian River to Miami-Dade to Santa Fe to Valencia, and there's 2 current finalists. And you'll notice that all of the winners were actually finalists one year, and then they became winners. So 2 of the finalists, both Broward and Tallahassee, were finalists at one point, and they are finalists right now, and they're hoping to be moved into a winners category in this round. So the biggest achievement of this prize, obviously, is the $1 million package, which is always nice, but it's the recognition of being one of these top-tier community colleges. Although we are really a college, we still fall underneath the community college model, so we were very much hoping to achieve that. So with that, it's a very, very brief overview. We just wanted to, I know that it's been 4 months that we were hoping to be moving further along, but we didn't have an opportunity, obviously, because of COVID. But we are now back on track, and we're looking forward to moving forward with this. Are there any questions I can answer?
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I wanted to say thank you, Dr. Crawford and Dr. Williams. I've talked regularly with Dr. Williams, and we met maybe January or February in addition to last fall with Dr. Crawford, trying to figure out the right way to do this. And I appreciate you all coming back with the recommendation of using Madeline. And I also really like the idea of using the Aspen criteria as our threshold. In other organizations, I found it to be extremely helpful when you take a national or international standard that is renowned as the best and you seek to align yourself with that. It makes setting goals much easier. So, thank you.
Well, thank you.
And what we've all come to love this discussion, health insurance today. So, Ms. Sumter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Williams. Today I will be going through our insurance background and recommendations for the upcoming calendar year as it pertains to our insurance, medical insurance in this presentation. And then we will, based upon whether or not we get approval here, know what is going to happen with dental and all other offerings. Oh. Okay, with that, on your first page, I just want to give you a brief history of how we got here. So we took a 5-year look back, and when we look back for the 5 years, what we see is that we have increased costs in our medical portion that is not leveling, it is not going down, it's significantly higher each and every year.
Ms.
During the
Sumter,
same...
I'm sorry. Can I pause you there?
Sure.
I didn't know if technologically we had access to the presentation. Just because it's small, I don't right now. Do you?
I do.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
It would make it easier, I think.
got it.
I hear everybody trying to ding through. I just did, and I didn't have access to it.
It's the consortium evaluation, right?
If you click on BOT items shortcut, you should be able to access it. Mine just has a network credentials block on it.
It's just the chair.
Do you have yours
I
up?
do.
Okay. Everybody else set? All right. And I have Dr. Williams. Sorry. Thank
Okay,
you.
no, you're fine.
Dr. Williams, do you want mine? No, I'm good. Okay.
Was it in our package?
And in each of these 5 years, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we were underfunded for the entire period between 2015 and 2019. And that underfunded number varied over the years, and it was a total of $8.3 million that we paid out, more than what we had taken in previous. Now, there's a lot of information in your packet. And this slide here, talking about our high dollar claims, this is probably the most critical slide in the presentation because this shows us why staying self-funded poses great risk to the college. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes on this chart to explain it. So under our annual section here, and it talks about how many claims we expect to have that's $50,000 or higher. Those are claims that we have to pay out of pocket. So our expected is 22 that's going to be over 50,000. Of those 22, we expect 8 to be 100, 3 to be 200, and so on all the way down. The reason we call out the 350,000 in red is because we have to pay everything up to $350,000 on a claim before our stop loss insurance kicks in. So this poses great risk for the college because one or two $350,000 claims has a gaping hole in our operational budget. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. If you can look at 2020, as you can see from 2015 all the way through 2020, we have not had an anomaly. This has become a trend of what's going on in our normal course of dealing with our insurance. So if you look in the box in the yellow box there, if you look at our diseases that hit our high dollar claims, these are not diseases that are just like a one-time off or that we can do wellness to get under control right away. These are chronic. These are things that people are living with every single day. On our next slide, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. What I do want to point out to you is that by moving over to the consortium in our future state to the right, they have 6 plans to choose from under Florida Blue for our medical. In our presentation today, we're going to focus on 3 that we felt worked best for our college population. As I mentioned earlier, all of the other offerings we will review once we make a decision on medical, because medical is the big bite of the apple. What I do want to focus on as well is the funding and compliance. Our college carries a lot of costs to stay self-funded. For example, we pay our stop-loss insurance almost $700,000. We pay almost $560,000 on an admin fee with Aetna, $85,000 on our consulting fees. All of those costs, oh, and then by the way, anything up to $350,000 we also pay. All of those costs goes away by going with the consortium. The consulting piece with the consortium is built in the cost to the plan. This right here is just a quick slide that talks about the scope, what we wanted to do, which was basically we wanted to do a comparison of what would happen if we stayed self-funded versus if we went with the consortium. We knew staying self-funded, we were going to have significant cost increases, so we had the proposal provided by our consultant for the self-funded as well as the consortium provide their information for us. The next slide here, is our analysis. What we did do, we did simplify our salary bands going from 9 salary bands down to 3. And in a later slide, you'll be able to see how our population falls if they were in the 9 bands compared to the 3 bands. You'll see that later on in the presentation. We also wanted to focus on offering another option that we don't have currently, which is our PPO option. And so we added that plan in. When you're looking at the cost savings with that plan, we compared it to the HMO, which really isn't an apples to apples, but that's where you have your highest average increase, whereas the other plans are about $20 a month in additional increases. All right, so let's look at your 5-year projection. So remember that slide we were talking about high dollar claims? By having the high dollar claims so high, we really could not do strategic planning. We were literally doing year-to-year planning, hoping that we would hit the mark so that we could look at what year 2 and 3 were. And that has not happened at all over the last 5 years. With the consortium, you're able to do more of a 5-year, 3-year plan, because instead of having 1,200 employees as a risk pool, we have 12,000 because we're entering into a risk pool with other colleges. Every time we go to price out what our costs are going to be, we're only looking at our risk pool. And we have a very high risk pool as far as our high dollar claims. So let's look at the first year. This negative $263,000 for 2021. What I wanted to point out from there is when we originally received our numbers from Brown & Brown, this number was higher from them. When they found out we were looking at the consortium, we were able to get about another $1 million in savings from Aetna. So that's where we ended up with a negative $263,000. If you look at the other years going forward, though, with a 9.52% estimated increases with staying self-funded versus 5.76 by going with the consortium, you see in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, we have significant savings. But again, I want to bring you back to the high dollar claims. This $263,000, that is one patient in the ICU for COVID. We pay that, and we don't know how many ICU patients we may be having on our plan if we stay self-funded. We don't pay that if we go with the consortium. Next, I'm going to introduce Justin Piazza and Matthew Snook. They are from the consortium in Mercer, and they can go into all of the analysis and actuarial information that I think will explain more clearly how it's going to impact our employees. So. I feel like I'm in preschool.
You know? Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. Had a great drive from Gainesville this morning to be with you. So again, appreciate the opportunity. I want to level set where we are and who we are as a consortium. Again, my name is Justin Piazza, and I work at the consortium. I am actually a college employee. Santa Fe College is our fiscal agent, and so I'm technically a Santa Fe College employee. But our mission is to provide comprehensive and innovative risk management services and solutions for our member colleges, so they don't have to worry about the minutia. They don't have to worry about the administration portion of things, that we handle those. And we have a property casualty side of our house, which all buildings in St. Pete that St. Pete owns or a foundation owns are insured by the consortium. And we also have an employee benefit side of the house. We are not an insurance company. We are truly made up of the colleges that came together in 1979 because of statute, and we're, by mutual agreement by all the state colleges, formed the consortium. Started with property casualty, and then 1985 started with the employee benefits. And St. Pete actually used to be the fiscal agent for the consortium way back in the day. And so appreciate the opportunity again to be here. And I wanted to bring Matthew Snook from Mercer as a third-party objective person and company that when St. Pete approached the consortium about employee benefits and about bringing St. Pete on as far as the consortium was concerned and having the employee benefits offered to St. Pete College, we wanted to make sure that we knew what we were getting into, that because we had 22 other colleges in the system, 16,000 members, and we want to make sure that we're right with them as well. And if we bring in a sinking ship, we don't want to continue to sink the ship. And so we wanted to make sure and have an objective view of where we are and where you are. And so we hired Mercer to come in to take a look at St. Pete and take a look at your past claims experience. We really couldn't compare apples to apples because the plans that you currently have are different than the plans we have. They were the different carrier, but you also don't have a PPO, which is you're more narrow in your network, that you can't go outside of that network because there's no coverage. Where our PPOs, there is traveling. You can travel outside the state, you can travel outside the country, et cetera, and you have a broader network access. And so we asked Mercer to come in to take a look at the plans, take a look at what you have, take a look at the experience, and say, okay, what would it take for St. Pete, or what would it look like for St. Pete to join the consortium? And so I'm going to ask Matthew Snook to come now and just briefly give you an overview of what they were able to see, what they were able to find, and then we'll go into this slide. So Matthew?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to take off that mask and to put on adult clothing. So that was nice too. So we collected a lot of data. Well, let me back up. Justin talked about the independence and objectivity that we bring to the analysis. I think it's important for you guys to understand that if St. Pete College becomes a part of the consortium's health benefit program, it really has no impact on us one way or the other, not financially, not in any way. It does help the consortium because as that pool that's already big gets bigger, the predictability for all participants gets better. I have a bunch of actuarial exams and a master's degree in statistics. And one thing I know is that when numbers get bigger, the future gets more predictable. And so that's a huge help, and actually maybe one of the most significant benefits to St. Pete College for joining the consortium would be the predictability and the comfort there. But the process we undertook, we did collect the claims data for your current plans and projected your experience for, first of all, the rest of this calendar year, so calendar year 2020. And it appeared that your current funding rates were going to give you about a $3 million shortfall, and I don't think that's any big surprise to anybody at this point. As we projected to next year, that would persist, but what we did was then we calculated the actuarial values of your plans, and the actuarial values are simply how many pennies of every claims dollar your plan covers. So 85% would mean it covers across a broad spectrum of claimants 85 cents on the dollar, okay? So we looked at the values of your plans, we projected those forward into 2021. Then we mapped the consortium plans that were closest to your current plan designs, closest in aggregate actuarial value, and we calculated what your costs would be under the consortium's arrangement, making all the adjustments that you do. And it did show, actually, and our analysis showed on that 5-year plan savings in every year. Okay, so the reason yours did not show that savings in the first year is because subsequent negotiations with that occurred, which I found out just a moment ago. But nevertheless, I think that in either case, you're going to get plans that are analogous, not exactly the same, different vendors, but I think generally speaking, more choice, both in terms of the plans offered, because we're talking about a 3-plan arrangement versus your current 2-plan arrangement, and more choice also because it does 2 of the 3 plans offer out-of-network service availability, so people with children in college, people while they're traveling, et cetera, all the things Justin mentioned would be covered under the plan. So from that perspective, I think it's a good opportunity. I think your employees would be well satisfied with that. As far as what you do with employee contributions, I've got a lot of opinions, many of them strong, about what you do with employee contributions. But the consortium does not dictate what you do with payroll contributions. So how much your employees contribute, what your net cost of the program is. The consortium helps manage the gross cost. The net cost is up to you, up to how much you think your employees can bear. So you guys will manage that. We would be glad to advise with regard to that to the extent that you have any interest in that. But you do right now contribute very differently than most of the state colleges do, as you're probably aware. So I think that's really everything I wanted to say, other than one other point. I think the 2 major points of value for St. Pete College in moving to the consortium's arrangement are, first, from your perspective, this will behave like a fully insured program, meaning the guaranteed cost aspect. I use the word guarantee with an asterisk because if the world blows up, things could happen. But generally speaking, over a very long period of time, I've been consulting with the consortium now since 2004. And since 2004, they've never had to go to the college and say, we have a shortfall, we need more money, ever, okay? And so the program will behave for you as a fully insured program. There won't be an end-of-the-year surprise, okay? But while you're getting that, you're getting the benefits of participating in a self-insured program because the program is self-insured at the consortium level. So all of the savings that are inherent to that arrangement will be, you will realize those. The second thing, and the biggest benefit, I think, to St. Pete College of joining the consortium is the predictability. They've had a very smooth track record. There haven't been any 20% increases year over year. They have had a couple years where costs potentially could go down. So it's been a very stable population, which is very healthy for the pool, and it's been a very stable rate increase history over time, particularly as compared to what's going on in the world, because as you probably are also well aware, medical inflation rates have been a little challenging at numerous times. So that's all I had to say, unless anybody has any questions.
I do. You said we contribute very differently than most of the other colleges. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, most of the colleges pay 100% for employee-only coverage for at least one plan, But most of those same colleges contribute $0 towards any level of dependent coverage. So, and I think that's all obviously publicly available information. But that's a very different approach. I will tell you, so I do consult with a lot of organizations that are not state colleges, and among employers of your size, that's very, very unusual. What you do is a much more typical approach and much more competitive, to the extent that any of the folks you might be trying to hire would be from outside the governmental realm or our college system. So what you do would be my preference of the two approaches.
Got it.
Anything else? Okay, I didn't touch anything, just saying.
Thank you.
Just to hit on what Matthew was just talking about as far as the flexibility, the colleges have that flexibility to determine whether you're going to do a salary band, or you're going to pay 100% of the employee only, or you're going to do a percentage of. So again, we as the consortium level set and say this is what the premium is for X, Y, and Z plan. The college itself determines how they want to administer that to their population. This slide here, and I'm going to move this into a full view mode here, if I can find it. All right, now I can't see it, but I can see it on here. What this slide here is representing is basically the consortium proposal next to the Aetna proposal with the inclusive of the repricing. And on the y-axis there, you'll see the high deductible health plan 5190. We use numbers to make sure we can determine what our plans are. So that's what those numbers are made of. So the high deductible health plan is simply an HSA, and the deductible for that is a $1,500 deductible for an individual. It's a $3,000 deductible for family. The consortium on January 1 front loads a funding mechanism to each of the employees. For employee only, we fund $500. For employee plus one, whether that's a spouse or a child, we fund $1,000. And employee plus family, we fund $1,500. And so in essence, in the HSA for a family plan, we're funding half of the deductible on January 1. So that first year doesn't necessarily come in on January 1. That's when it's funded and the banking processes that happen in there. And we do that every year. And that's not just a one-time thing. It's not just for new employees. That is every year, as long as the state budgets don't get cut 50-60% and we're strapped with money. So that is a fluid process that we continue to, and we've done since we've offered the HSA, and want to continue to do in the foreseeable future. The next plan you see there is a 3769, which is a PPO plan, and then the next slide you can see some of the detail of these plans. But that is a PPO, and all of our plans are, you might be familiar when ACA came out, they had the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the platinum plans. All of our plans are gold and platinum level plans. Those are things that we continue to look at as Matthew shared. Medical inflation and the cost of health care continues to rise. And so in order to keep those costs down for our employees, we always take a look at the benefits. And if there's some things that we need to tweak, we will do that at that time to make sure that we're not burdening our employees and our colleges. So that's a PPO plan. And then we have an HMO, which you are more familiar with here at St. Pete, that we offer, that Florida Blue offers as well. And you can see the migration projected enrollment and the migration numbers in there. It's hard to project the PPO because you don't necessarily have, you don't have a PPO to project from, but we have put in our projections of migration there. This next slide, again, as I shared earlier, it has some more of the detail. And the bullet points below, you see that you can see the St. Pete's 2020 current self-insurance plan design, and you see that 20 and 21 butted up against FCS RMC 2021. The changes which would have to be made to the self-insured plan in order to remain sustainable. And then you see the FCS RMC 2021 plan design selected from the available menu of plans from the consortium. And the green highlights denote the richest benefit within the comparison category, whether it's the deductible, annual maximum out of pocket, coinsurance, PCP, telemedicine, and specialists, et cetera. I will point out the the HSA, or the high deductible health plan. Again, it's a $1,500 deductible for employee only, but only a $4,500 out-of-pocket maximum. If you go to the PPO, it's a $600 deductible, but the out-of-pocket maximum is $6,000. And so one of the things that the HSA does is it helps our employees become better consumers of healthcare. I can go to Publix and get a gallon of milk for $3.51. I can go to Walmart and that same gallon of milk, probably from the same dairy, is $2.75. I can go to Sam's Club and maybe pay $2.55. But Sam's Club's 7 miles from my house, and Publix is a half a mile down the road, and really that dollar's not going to affect me very much. So I decide I'm going to go to Publix because that's my choice. But for healthcare, I think we need to start looking at it the same way. Understand that we're going to get the same gallon of milk at X, Y, and Z place, but I prefer this provider, and they understand exactly what they're getting into. And so for the PPO, it's easy or even in the HMO, for an employee to go and they have a $100 copay at the ER. It's easy to pay that $100 copay. But if all of a sudden they realize, okay, my deductible is $1,500 and insurance isn't going to kick in until I reach that deductible, they become better consumers and say, oh, maybe I should go to urgent care and it's only going to cost me $75, or maybe telemedicine where it's only going to cost me $10. And so the HSA is really to help change behavior, and I encourage our employees over and over to get into that HSA because it's a great financial tool. They have money that's stored up, that's their money. If they leave the college, they separate employment, that is their bank account, and they can use that for retirement funds, medical expenses, et cetera. But you see the differences in the plans there. In the categories with no highlighting, the benefit comparison is neutral with no positive or negative impact to St. Pete employees. Again, I shared the funding, the $500, the $1,000, and the $1,500 in the health savings account. Any questions before I move to the next slide? All right. This next slide is really just highlighting the differences between the 20 and 21 employee contributions. And as you look at this, you might say, especially for the employee only, that how is this benefiting our employees? And I want to be honest with you. You have been underfunding as far as what the contribution has been for employees for years now. And that's one of the reasons why you're in the predicament that you're in right now. And so this right here, it looks like it's more skin for the employees, but really it's level setting where they need to be. So whether you come to the consortium or you stay with your current provider, as far as I'm a college employee, I don't get paid any different whether St. Pete joins or doesn't join. I don't make any commission. I am a licensed agent, but I strictly, for the last 10 years, have been working for the consortium. I would say whatever you do, make sure that the employee contribution is right, because you will continue to be underfunded no matter what you do if that's not made right. So you see this, the dependent care becomes actually a little bit better while the employee has to pay a little bit more, and that's what this slide is showing. Any questions on that one? This next slide again is you're moving from 9 salary bands to 6, which I think is more manageable. And I think 9 was a little too much, but that's what this slide is depicting here. All employees currently pay $10 per month for the high deductible health plan coverage, regardless of salary tier. And so that's why that one number, 153, is just in that one column. It didn't really matter what column that they were put in. And Mercer did utilize a migration formula to determine where migration would occur into the PPO. That's not shown here because you don't have a current PPO to reference it against. And this last slide is just really, I'll bring Carol back up. Our opinion as a consortium would be that we believe that we can help St. Pete College. We believe that we can help your employees. And so there's two different levels here. We think in a business sense, we can help St. Pete. Financially, we believe that we can help St. Pete. For your employees, we really believe that we can bring comprehensive and innovative health care coverage to them, be able to bring them tools, whether it's wellness or EAP or dental vision, other things that we can bring to your employees to help them be more productive employees for St. Pete. And so we appreciate the opportunity to come and present with you. Would love to answer any questions that you might have, and I'll leave the floor. Any questions?
I do, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I have always said, for every time we've been brought a plan, that you expand choices that would allow for, and it sounds like that's what you're saying here, that would allow for the employee to tailor-make or build their own plan that they would like, but also allowing them to pay for some of that, which decreases the cost that the college would have to pay. For example, why not provide 10 AFLACs, and I'm just using AFLAC as an example, and the employee could decide who they wanted for long-term or whatever care they need. So it sounds like we're moving to that kind of model with the PPO, where the employee has more say-so in who and what and how they utilize the program, but also I guess we are gonna set the cost right so that the college is not continually having to pay more and dump more money into it.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So, but like, who are the providers that, for a medical, health, dental, eye, and all, who are your providers?
Well, the carrier for the medical is Florida Blue.
Okay.
And so they have a vast network of providers, and we've done a network analysis to see what kind of disruption there would be, and it's a very minimal disruption as far as the providers are concerned in this area. For vision, we use VSP, which is a national vision service provider. At dental, we use Delta Dental, and we have 2 PPOs and HMO for our dental program. We use the standard. We just actually went for a request for a proposal last year for life benefits, and we were able to secure a 30% reduction in our basic life. So that's why we went with standard with Unum previously. EAPs with New Directions. New Directions is a subsidiary of Florida Blue. And so that helps because of any of the mental health issues is coded directly into Florida Blue. It's a seamless coding process. And so we used EAP, New Directions for EAP. And we have an enrollment system that we use for all the state colleges. FBMC is the service provider, and they do electronic enrollment. If you enroll in your own ERP system, we just send files to FBMC. They send those files out to the carriers and do all the compliance and administration as far as that's concerned.
And the reason I asked that question is there's a lot of people watching, so
Sure.
I want to make sure they know who those providers are. The Blues have been for the state a pretty standard company that most state agencies and most people have worked with, and it's a pretty seamless process if you need a mental health provider and other things. So that's why I just asked that question. I wanted to make sure on the record.
Yes, sir. Oh, and thank you, Matthew. We did just do an RFP for medical, where Florida Blue, Aetna, and United Healthcare were the 3 finalists, based on the network access across the state. Florida Blue was the winner and was awarded that contract. There are different pockets where Aetna or United, and they are closing the gap. And so Florida Blue knows that they're closing the gap, and which is good. Competition is a good thing. But we did just do the RFP this year, and Florida Blue was awarded the business. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just speaking as the financial, as financial background here, the HSA portion of this is fantastic. And I assume that has never existed before?
For us as a college,
We have an HSA, but not a high deductible plan, right?
Gotcha.
They go
Yeah,
together,
okay.
they side by side, but the funding, you haven't had the funding. I think you do
Right.
the one-time funding and, but not the continuous. And the deductible and as such are a little bit higher.
Mr. Kidwell, we've had it, but we've never funded it properly,
This is great.
And my final question is, though when we join the consortium, if the college, say St. Petersburg College, wanted to look at other alternatives to give to the employee in terms of life insurance and other things, is that possible for us to say, okay, well, we're gonna add, Colonial or this one or that one, and the employee pays for that?
Yes, so.
Without getting in trouble with the consortium?
Yeah, the consortium, you have full autonomy as far as your business. So, for instance, you have custom benefits right now that does your FSAs.
Yep.
We work with Tom Watson. Tom does not all of them, but a majority of the college's FSA plans. We do not dictate that. If you choose to just do medical only, that's great. If you choose to do the entire board of what the consortium offers, great. If you want to pick and choose those things, you're all in on the medical, but all the other things are, it's a la carte. You can pick and choose it.
What is your recommendation to take all of them and then add to it and make it a suite of services that the employee would be wanting to pay for themselves, or do you recommend just taking the consortium's programs? Have you seen the best?
My opinion would be this: the consortium offers a broad mixture of plans for your vision, your dental, and medical. I would definitely go with the consortium. That's my opinion. The other ancillary things, you might have a relationship with somebody, a broker here, that can maybe give you a better pennies on a dollar for a life program. And so I think having those relationships locally is something that is nothing to be sneezed at. And I think
But you brought the cost down.
Correct.
On the thing that is the big.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Sure.
One of the things that might dictate that would be how your population compares demographically and experience-wise as compared to the consortium's population.
Yep.
So I was talking earlier about the benefits of size. Well, if you look at any one particular college, life insurance rates are so dictated by what the demographic characteristics of the population
How
are.
they are,
If you
yeah.
happen to be a younger population, you might be able to get a lower life insurance rate on your own. My guess is, and what I've heard about your population is that's probably not the case, in which case you probably end up coming out a lot better if you go with the consortium's plan. But that's, as Justin said, that's up to you for the
You have to
comparison.
evaluate that individually so that you can get the benefit of the
Right.
consortium.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions or comments by the trustees?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for being here, and Ms. Sumter, thank you for all your hard work going into this. I know 3 years ago, when we had our last workshop, at that time, we made some slight adjustments to the employee contribution, but the board at the time wasn't willing to make the big leap that we knew was necessary to do. So hopefully, we've taken small steps, so this won't, that would be my big concern, is how we roll this out, if there is the adjustment in costs to the.
Well, I wanted to add one more final piece, because this is a challenge that the president has given the college. It is being more efficient with your money and taking money that we can reinvest into our employees and retain our employees. So let's talk about the money. Remember, I keep talking about that high claims number. So one of the other things that I did not talk about earlier was our safe harbor number. So by going to the consortium this year in 2021, we do not have to pay a $3 million in cash available to meet our safe harbor obligations. That goes away. And that safe harbor obligation is really dependent upon the 60 days average from December 31st, 60 days prior. If you have a lot of high dollar claims come in, that number is higher. And that's the part that blows up the budget, because we don't see that. And so I think one of the things that really had a paradigm shift for us is the last VP of Business Services he sat me down, I think it was late 2018, and he said, we're going to have to plan to have an operational line for healthcare in our budget. Okay, that is completely opposite of what a self-funded plan does. So that piece on the safe harbor, that's a lot of money. But in addition to that, we have over $2 million of costs that we're paying, admin fees, consulting costs, and stop-loss insurance. That's $2 million that we know is going to be put back into the budget and back into our employees. And then any claim that is $50,000, $100,000, $350,000 that we have to pay, that goes away. So now I can go to Janet and say, hey, Janet, I'm not taking money from your budget. Because those are very hard conversations, because Janet works very hard to get our budget balanced. And then when we come across and say we need $500,000, we need $2.5 million, she just can't plan for that. So I really wanted to close it out by saying we're giving our employees more, we're taking care of them better, and we're putting money back into our operational budget for managing self-funded. But in addition, we're not taking money from the operation budget that the college plans with all the vice presidents, and then at the last minute, we're coming by in December saying, we need a few $1 million more. That's just not fair, it's not sustainable, and highly, highly, highly recommend to go to the consortium.
Well, you can't, sorry, you can't prepare for that because you don't know what the number is.
Yeah, that's been the problem every year in the budget.
Well, but if you go back and we look at the tape, remember when they came with the 3 recommendations, they kept saying we weren't sure. I mean, we were saying, because remember it was the one, let's fund it all up front, which all of us, I think, said, no, we don't want to do that. But long story short, is you can't prepare for the number with the aging workforce that we have. We really probably should just move and get it over with.
So do we need form?
Can't do it here, we got to do it next month.
Right.
Right.
So today's presentation was to, one, educate the board that we did complete the review in the comparison between staying self-insured or going with the consortium. And 2, it was to make sure that when we did get to the August board meeting, you will have had a chance to talk it through. And then we would actually start communicating that out. We have had a meeting presenting this, the option to the insurance committee. And we met with them last week to share what you saw today. They asked a lot of questions. So we're looking at the deep detail of what the cost would be to the employees and what that would look like. And then with the notion of cost savings from not having to pay safe harbor every year, it's precedent to hear this year you need $3 million. Last year you need $100,000. The year before it was $4 million. You just can't operate that way. And then the other expenses, those funds can be used to support the people that we love, and that's our employees. And then we would be able to give them what they need to stay and do the good work that they're doing. And so we would start after the board, if you approve it at the board meeting, we would start the communications and the individual meetings and working with the consortium to close that up.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Williams, I keep hearing about this insurance, who's on the insurance committee?
I don't have the names, but I can.
But I mean,
send it to you.
what is it comprised? Is it
Staff and then-
experts?
It's staff, Trustee Gibbons. The
I'll
ins-
just tell you right now, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, and I hope whoever's looking at this and as staff that's on that committee, I'm not trying to be funny, but if you don't do this every day, we shouldn't have a committee doing it. Like, I'm not going to make beer because I don't know how to make it, right?
Gotcha.
But I'm
I
just telling you,
would
this
like
is
to-
too technical and it's too much money and other things that are involved. You have to have experts that are looking at this thing, even in our own companies. I know that we have people that come in and talk to us about our insurances. I ain't investing money because not my own money because I don't know how to do that either. But this is something that we really should, I'm not saying you have to disband the committee. Maybe that's a committee that allows for people to get the information out.
Yes.
But
Right,
to
so-
be helping to make a decision about that, it's
Got
a
it.
little rough.
So when I started, the insurance committee was
It was already
making
in place.
the recommendations. They were making the recommendations. This year, we met with the experts. We had several meetings with insurance experts, and we shared the option to go with the committee.
Right.
And so we did do that a little bit differently this year to make sure that we're not only educated on the issues that we're facing, but we're making a good decision for the entire institution with the experts in the room. And so that's how we got to the
Yeah.
consortium, and Diane DeRocco has had many meetings and conversations to get us to this point. So I do believe we've received expert advice, and we've looked at the data very carefully, and we do have a plan on the savings from doing this the way that we've been doing it in the past, and how we would use that to pass it back out to our employees. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Hunt?
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Williams.
Good morning.
This morning, I am going to give you a presentation to provide some update on the budget numbers and where we are. In the last board meeting back in June 16th, I brought forth a budget for approval. Now, at the time of that board meeting, there was some areas that we did not have the exact numbers for. We knew that this would be really kind of the preliminary budget that we needed to get approved in order to meet the June 30 deadline for the state, because they still required us to turn in an approved budget. So I just wanted to highlight here and remind you of what was approved back in June 16th. Two of the areas that we knew we had to, that were pending at the time, was possibly a change in our state funding allocation, and also the health insurance model, because we had not received the cost for the consortium at the time. Just to recap for the student tuition and fees, as a reminder, we did adjust our budget projection based off of whatever impact we may have from the COVID pandemic. We also included the unapproved state allocation at the time. At the time, that allocation included special programs, which was the Collegiate High, which was $2 million, and also the nursing simulation, which was $725,000. In preparation of this budget at the time, because we were not sure if that funding was going to be received, we actually budgeted the expense in the contingency area. So if it was not approved, we could easily remove those amounts. Also, as I mentioned in the last board meeting, we did not have pricing on the health insurance, but again, we had to submit a budget by June 30. So the next 3 slides we're going to go through really looks at what has happened since that last board meeting. So first, looking at the fall enrollment status. And so you saw in the last board meeting, we talked about, revising our business model and how we're going to track our budgeted SSH to our actual SSH in the current fiscal year, and not just look at where we are in SSH this year versus last year, because each year on July 1st, the budget amount changes. And so here I wanted to give you an update where we are with that. So for fall, we budgeted a little under 11,000 student semester hours. As of yesterday morning, we were at 170,000, which is about 19% less than what we budgeted for. So now let's look at the bottom. We look at the SSH.
Sorry, Ms. Hunt.
Yes.
That's through today, so we can expect in the next week or 2 weeks that more students will enroll potentially?
Yes, and I'm going to speak to that.
We hope.
So with the dollar amount, that's about $3.9 million less than what we budgeted for fall. We know that our first week of classes starts August 17th. We look at that first week. At the end of the week, we look to see which is an indicator of where we will be in enrollment. We have done intense push to contact students, marketing pushes to increase the enrollment. It does not end there. Remember, we also have express courses that start after August. So in a past year or two, we have been able to increase our enrollment to a level to kind of mitigate whatever the negative amount is of not reaching our goal. So it's not over yet. We still have a lot of activities that we're doing to continue with the enrollment. We have been seeing an uptick. It has been a steady uptick on a daily basis. So the trending is decreasing that negative amount. But we, again, will know a lot more after the August 24th date. Okay.
Madam.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's important, too, for the board to know that many colleges are 30%, some are 30% down in enrollment. And we need to, it would be wrong for us not to think that this is not your typical enrollment period, and that we could achieve it, but there's a lot of things in play, from the school district and what they're doing with classes and the decisions students make with homeschooling, and we're looking for jobs. And so we have a uphill climb. Our student affairs team has done an amazing job, even in remote working, of pulling students through the funnel. But we need to really understand that there are a lot of moving pieces to this, and that we are definitely on top of our game in moving us forward. But we're definitely working hard to move us in the right direction.
Remind me, sorry to go sideways on this one, but remind me, last month, we weren't expecting this much of a decline, right? Our budget was...
No. So our budget for the fiscal year, we budgeted 10% to be 10% down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
And so we are 20% down from our budgeted amount.
From our budgeted
so,
amount.
That's right. So
Okay,
yes.
that's
yes, even
thank
more.
you. So even
Yeah.
greater.
Yes.
So we are 30%
So we are-
down.
Well, from what we planned, we're not, but
Right.
Yes,
from what
but
we
from
were
where we
last
were.
year,
Yeah.
remember, we discontinued comparing ourselves year to year.
Right.
And comparing ourselves to our goal, because every year things change.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
we're 20% from
Right.
our goal.
And I will add too, these numbers go out every week to
Yeah.
the staff, and it's been very helpful with managing. It's been very helpful for the enrollment recruitment team to stay on top, because they're actually getting to see 3.9, okay, what
we are.
measures do we need to go in to try to mitigate this? So it kind of brings it to home, and when you start to see the dollar amount, people, we're able to adjust to that, so. All right. So the next slide is our state funding allocation. And since that last board meeting on June 29th, legislation changed, including that the special projects would not be funded. And so for us, that was a little over 2.7 million. It was the Collegiate High School and the nursing simulation. After that, on July 9th, we received information where there would be a 6% holdback. And so part of that communication included that it was to curtail state agency spending during the upcoming fiscal year to allow for review and potential reduction in non-essential state services and programs. So that holdback was applied to general revenue. It was also applied to trust fund allocations, which is the lottery, and also the tiered funding model, which is the Student Success Incentive Fund, and the industry certifications. Now, I want to note with the industry certifications, they talk about the holdback, which will be applied to us on a monthly basis. But the industry certifications, we don't receive until May anyway, so we wouldn't have received those dollars until towards the end of the fiscal year. That holdback amount is about $4.3 million. I have been hearing that there may be opportunity to request that funding later in the year, but we have not received any information on how, when, or what the guidelines would be to actually request those dollars. So the next update is the health insurance, which you just received the presentation from Justin and from Carol. And so I wanted to really kind of translate what that looks like in the operating budget fund. And so here you see a chart where the first column is what we budgeted for the 2021 fiscal year, which is a little over 14 million. And the blue is projecting what the expenses will be, because the health insurance plan is by calendar year, not fiscal year. So this is why we have it divided out. From July through December, we will continue to be self-insured, which we're expecting to spend a little over $7 million. If you approve and we move into the consortium, we will, from January to June, the consortium amount is $9.2 million. So in the presentation that you saw earlier, you saw the comparison of the consortium would be 17 million, and the Aetna, where we're self-insured, would actually be 17 million as well. And Carol showed the difference of 263,000, which does not include the safe harbor piece. So $3 million we would have to fund the program at the end of the calendar year if we stayed self-insured. With the consortium, we still have to fund the program, because remember, we were underfunded from the beginning.
Yep.
So instead of $3 million, we would still need to invest $2 million into the program. But the advantage here is, which is why we wanted to look at how this is projected out over 5 years, is this is still more sustainable for the college. So this would be us investing into a sustainable health plan, and over the years, we'd be able to, one, as Carol mentioned, be able to budget for the operating costs of the health plan and be able to sustain without having to do these last-minute infusions into the plan.
So
Yes, ma'am.
this, what we're looking at here, does not include the $3 million safe harbor transfer, or it does?
It does not.
It does not,
It
because we
does
won't
not.
have to, we won't even have to make it for the year in December 2020.
And that was
Correct.
my first question when we talked about moving into the consortium was, even though we have the self-insurance for 2020, are we gonna still have to try to meet the self-insurance, safe harbor and also invest into
Right.
this? And so the answer is no. So once we end in December 31st, we do not have to meet the safe harbor
And
requirement.
currently, our safe harbor is a budgeted amount, or it's an unbudgeted amount?
Well,
Because I know we show it, so we know that it's coming, but I wasn't sure how it's formally.
We try to budget for it, but the issue with the self-insurance plan is that it's unpredictable.
Right.
And so we've tried before some years, this 1920 year, we only had to transfer 553,000. The year before, it was $4 million.
That's right.
So it really depends on what claims come in. We try to project, but then we have some years where the second half of the year, the claims are extremely high, and then our safe harbor amount is much higher than what we've anticipated.
Anybody jump in, but I guess the point or line of my questioning is, while this is showing a $2.1 million negative difference,
Mhm.
is it really a $900,000 positive difference because we're not infusing that $3 million?
Safe harbor.
So
Or is the 3 million in there? That's what I was trying to understand.
Right, the 3 million is not included
Okay.
in the number.
But we're going to have to,
But we're going to have to, we would have been, if we were looking at this from the point of this is a self-insurance and this chart was just to look at self-insurance, that difference would be $3 million.
Okay.
At the time that we vote on the safe harbor and joining safe harbor, when do we go into it? December 31st or January 1st?
When we actually do the
When do
transition,
when do we start in the consortium? January 1,
it
right?
would be January 1.
Okay,
Right.
so I want to be clear, because I hear you, I hear what you're saying. I want to be very clear. So on the back side of this year, from when we vote next month to August, will we have to pay into safe harbor?
Not if we move into the consortium.
So how will we get the benefit of the consortium prior to being in it?
Well, we wouldn't get it prior to getting in it, so
Well, if
the
we're not in,
benefit.
hold on, let me ask you, stop right there.
Okay.
So if we're not in it until January 1, we are all fall that we're not in there. So
Right.
those, whatever, so we have to live with our current situation or plan all the way up to December 31. So there has to be some cost that we're missing, and I think that's what the chair is asking, like, what is that cost? Is it we have to pay something into out of the 3 million, or, because if say we have high claims, say 5 people get sick, what is that cost? Is that still something that we have to budget for? Or how did, that's what I'm getting
I get what you're
confused
saying.
on that.
So the answer is we can't predict what the claims are going to be.
Okay.
So right now, we are predicting that we will be around the $7 million through to December 31st. Where we have fallen into the issue is that it's underfunded, but we have not been able to meet the safe harbor. And when we talked with Brown & Brown this year, that was a lot of the concern, that even if we have budgeted and we pull together the dollars just to meet the claims, we don't have the dollars to meet safe harbor. And so the projection this year was, they initially said we needed an additional $3 million in order to just meet safe harbor by the end of the calendar year.
So essentially, we are pulling out of safe harbor.
We're saying, right,
Until
exactly.
December 31.
That's right.
And whatever happens, we're just kind of going bare.
Exactly. Well, until January 1st.
So,
So you're saying from
But-
December,
But
I mean, listen.
No,
you
I
gotta
don't
do
think
what you gotta
that's,
do.
I don't think that's correct. We still have the 3 million, that's what my initial question was. We still have,
A state mandated number,
state,
correct?
safe harbor is state mandated, so we'd have to pay it. So by joining the consortium January 1,
We do not
we're
have to
not
pay
going
it.
to have to pay retroactively for safe
Right.
harbor. So we'd be paying those claims regardless of joining the consortium or not. We just don't have the additional expense to
The
meet
additional
safe
burden
harbor.
of having the safe harbor.
Right.
Right.
And so that was my question,
Which is the
was,
safety net.
since we've all been thinking of the $3 million
So we're going
budgeted
bare.
in this fiscal
Right.
year that we're not going to have to pay,
No, I understand, but
is that less
we're going
out of
bare.
that? Yeah. So,
I get it.
yeah.
I guess for lack of better terms, it's just like going bare. You're saying we're gonna go without, and we will deal with whatever fallout. But it's just, as Trustee Stonecipher was saying, is that you get the benefit of it once you join January 1, retroactively as well, some of
Right.
that. Right?
We don't
Some
have
of
to
it.
pay, we don't
Some
have
of
to
it.
pay
We
the
have to pay
safe
it.
harbor, because the safe harbor is intended to cover your,
Right. The
it's
next
the
3
Safe
months.
harbor is a
backstop to say,
safe
hey,
harbor
next year
is-
you're gonna have
is
to
a-
pay more
is a
money, so
state-
we are requiring you to
Yeah,
transfer
safe
this.
harbor is just a state
Right.
mandate
Right.
to have a trust fund, so to speak.
Right.
To cover costs associated with the healthcare insurance, and just in case so I get that part.
So Trustee Gibbons, and maybe this will help too, our risk is, one, with self-insurance, is claim amounts and which impacts safe harbor. So there's 2 risks happening at the same time when we're self-insured. What the consortium will do is alleviate it's not going to alleviate the claims from now to December, because we're not going to be
We're not
able to
there.
go into the plan until January 1. But it does alleviate the obligation of us having to pay any additional funding for the safe harbor.
Will we be out of compliance with any state
No.
rules
No,
without having safe harbor until?
We will not, because
December 31, I'm sorry.
the form for safe harbor is due in the 2021 year.
Okay.
Because essentially, safe harbor is a look back.
It
So the
is.
state looks at
Yeah.
what happened in 2020 and says, based upon your claims in 2020, we won't feel safe unless you
Got
commit
it.
this amount to safe harbor for
Exactly.
2021,
Exactly.
which we won't need.
we won't need it.
So to your point, we have money from last year's safe harbor assessment sitting in the bank
Oh, yeah.
that should
Cover.
cover us.
Should.
But as the predictability is
Right.
neither the state nor.
Which
our
is
city.
why I would not recommend, typically I would have also made an adjustment and said, okay, let's take account for what we may have in the balance due to not paying safe harbor. But to your point, Trustee Gibbons,
do that.
we don't know what the claims are going to be.
Right, and
So
we-
I
And that was
wouldn't
my
feel
original
comfortable
question, like,
doing
is
that.
this really
Yeah.
a $900,000 positive? Because in our minds, we have that $3 million that would have been paid in
Right.
this fiscal year.
Yes.
You're just not accounting for that yet because we don't know what our claims are going to be in the last 6 months.
Correct.
So this could potentially be better.
Correct,
Could be
yes.
worse.
Okay,
They're saying everybody's getting healthier during COVID, so
there you
we'll
go.
see.
Exercising?
We will see.
Any more
Okay.
questions on
Thank you, sorry.
that? That's fine. So next, with all of that, I wanted to really transfer and talk about what recommended strategies in order to mitigate some of these costs. And so over the next few weeks, we'll be looking at where we land with enrollment and having a better idea overall as to how we need to adjust our operating budget. Some of the items here, as you know, there are, and Dr. Williams mentioned it earlier, we talked about it with the health insurance, there's many moving parts that are happening right now. Similar to when we were developing the budget, there were several unknowns. And so that still exists a little bit right now. And so one of the things we wanted to look at and we're continuing to do is we're continuing to address any of the non-essential expenditures. If you remember from last month when we met, some of these items were on the list of what we were doing as strategies and things we really needed to do, really regardless of COVID, but just to streamline and have a more modern business, model. 2 is restructure our business model. And so some of the things that we've been doing is really looking at what our outdated processes are. We've changed how we look at and monitor student semester hours and tuition. As I mentioned, each week we have the notifications that go out to the staff to let us know where we are. So we're able to make decisions and shift and change in order to meet some of the needs that we have. And also how we can maximize our opportunities for growth. Thirdly was a strategic personnel plan. And so as you probably recall from our 3-year financial plan is really reducing our personnel ratio to at least 75% and really to continue to look at those areas. Also additional pay structure models. We've been reviewing those, making changes as far as, for example, our cell phone allowance. It was very outdated. There were stipends that were much higher than what cell phone services cost nowadays. So we've made those types of changes. And also instituted a hiring freeze. One of the things that we've also instituted, if there is a critical position, really looking at certain characteristics about hiring for that position. How does this benefit the college? What does this cost? What is the return on investment? And we're going to talk about this in the next slide. Other things we're looking at is really reviewing other funding sources, making sure that we're leveraging all of our grant funding and also any other funds that we can in order to move forward with our funding budget. And then lastly, implementing our recovery plan. Last month I spoke to you about we have now where if we were to fall to a certain percentage, 4% below what we budgeted for in the student semester hours, we would need to implement a cross-wide salary reduction. So now I want to talk a little bit about how we want to do some of these things. You are aware, over the last few years, we've talked a lot about budget aligning and realigning the budget. And we've done a lot of things such as, for example, with the health insurance fund, where we've done a lot of these one-time transfers. But we really wanted to look at, we can't continue to do a lot of one-time patching. We've really got to say what is sustainable and what is the long-term plan here. And so here you'll see one of the words that you probably are very familiar or terms is return on investment. You do not hear that often in the state colleges. That's not typically how the business model is set up. And so this is going to be, we're seeing this across a lot of the higher education organizations, but this is going to be something that is needed going forward in order for higher education organizations to sustain. And so first we need to be able to really invest in things that are going to give us some type of return and how this benefits us future. So one, investing in a sustainable health insurance model. That's going to be very vital for our finance position. 2, looking at our technology, really streamlining, automating processes. How can technology help us to have more of a lean operational model? We also know that technology is changing. So how do we maximize our technology in those areas? Thirdly, and you've heard Carol mention it, Dr. Williams mention it, our largest resource, our budget is over 76% personnel. Our human capital is one of our largest resources. And how do we invest in them to maintain and obtain high-performing employees? The other is to use dollars in order for new ideas, to seed programs and make business propositions that will actually diversify our revenue. So when I say this, one of the examples I think of is, and this is hypothetical, but if we were to request $500,000 for reserves, it's not just to plug a number in so we could just balance the budget. We need to think about what is the return on this $500,000? What can we invest in so that fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 2022 has some type of benefit? So these are the things we're trying to balance, and we know there could, we have the holdback, which is over $4 million. So we know there's things that we need to do to realign, but we're really trying to balance between what we need to do to balance the operating budget and what is going to give us this return on investment for the years to come. So it's going to be, it's taking a lot of efforts. The VPs, we talk about different strategies, but I believe this will put us in a much better fiscal position going forward. And so with that said, after these type of reviews and where we will land with our enrollment, we'll be able to propose to you a budget amendment for the fiscal year 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. That was a great report, an overview of what you all have been working so hard on the past couple of months since everything turned upside down. Can I just request that we as the board get weekly with our Titans update where we're at with student semester hours for fall?
Sure, please.
Just so we can stay in tune with that as we move along. That's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to compliment you as well, not only for the planning the past couple months, but this goes into what we started at the beginning of our strategic planning when we looked at the overall institutional health, and the fact that even in a time where things may appear to not be going well, you're still looking forward, moving forward instead of just kind of to stop the bleeding. And I know that's difficult, not only for you as a budget person when you're looking at negative numbers, but for you to be able to communicate to the rest of the team that that's what they need to be doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Wright.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Williams. Today I'm going to be co-presenting with Jeanette on the district office migration plan, and also we're going to touch on the downtown parking assessment. So before I get started with the district office migration plan, I wanted to give you kind of an overview of some of the items that we're going to be touching on today. So the first thing is I'm going to go over the why, and that is going to be explained through our real estate plan, as well as I'm going to provide you an overview of the district office building, the timeline, and the action items that we've already approved and brought before the board, just so that you can have some historical perspective, how we're doing on utilization, and our latest report from the OPAGA group, and proposed migration project timeline, so looking forward, and then how the district office building migration actually benefits our finances, how it was already funded from the capital budget, and then provide you a timeline for the district office sale. So I'll first get started, before we do a deep dive into district office, I'll get started with the why and provide you a historical perspective of why the college decided to focus on a real estate analysis. About 4 years ago, we were trying to come up with different ways of reducing our operational costs and really trying to save on future maintenance obligations, as well as increasing efficiencies across all of our departments. At the time, there was a shift in classes, and we understood that 50% of our classes were actually online. And so we knew that there was going to be an opportunity for consolidation across all of our campuses. We wanted to maximize space utilization across all of our college, across the college and our campus and centers. And we also understood that we weren't getting the same amount of PICO funding like we were back in 08, 09. And so we needed to reduce our reliance on legislative funding. And we thought that this was going to be a perfect way to do it so that we can have some capital to repurpose existing spaces. So at the time, we contracted with a real estate consultant that really took a look and reviewed all of our college-wide spaces and usage, and they identified excess space college-wide. So they provided consolidation and real estate reports for several of our campuses, including Allstate, FB, HEC campus, downtown. They even looked at the Wellness Center at the St. Pete Gibbs campus. And then the architect, then subsequently we hired an architect to provide us conceptual design drawings for the HEC building and also the EPI and the DO projects, okay? And so we decided to focus on the district office building because at the time, it just created, it was the best building to move forward with. We had discussed HEC and decided that a P3 project would have been optimal for that. And so then our focus kind of shifted over to the district office migration. We understood that there was not going to be any impact to students because it's all administrative staff in the building. And that we had an opportunity to increase the utilization for EPI by moving some of these administrative teams together. So now we have all of HR together, which was extremely important. And a lot of the other administrative functions are now going to have more synergy between the departments and even within their own specific department. We also wanted to provide leadership presence within the downtown St. Petersburg community, and we did that by allocating space for the president, the foundation, and also for budgeting and finance at the downtown campus. And so at the time, we had brought before the board different schematic plans on what it would look like. We had hired an architect just to see if those departments could fit in the areas that we were intending to move them to. And in our August board meeting, there was a heavy discussion by the board regarding the $1.5 million PICO funds and whether we could retain those funds or whether those funds needed to be returned to the state, which subsequently after that meeting, we received clarity that that $1.5 million could stay with the college as long as it's redirected into capital projects. There was also a discussion on space utilization and whether, we understood that where we were at the time, that the classes were mostly online, but was there room for growth in the future? Oh, and this is just confirming. The confirmation was received from the state on August 23rd. And so going over the district office timeline, so back in February 2019, we had individual meetings. We reviewed the 3 projects, the sale of district office, the sale of Allstate, and the renovation of HEC. Then we subsequently moved to just focus on the district office building. And so we reviewed the district office property, selected our preferred options for space utilization by opting to sell the property, and that was done during individual board meetings. And then in the June 2019 board meeting, capital budget was approved in the June board meeting to include the $5 million for relocation and renovation projects. In August of 2019, there was a board workshop to review the district office footprint. And again, reiterate some of those benefits for consolidation, the state response for the PICO, and then the utilization rates across the college. In August of 2019, we received the letter from the state basically saying you are able to keep that $1.5 million as long as it's invested into capital funds. And then in the August board meeting, that's when we brought forth and did that big presentation where we got we seeked approval for the spot surveys to declare the district office property as unnecessary for educational ancillary purposes, and then brought it forth again in September of 2019. Where we brought forth the additional spot surveys for the renovations and remodels of Epi Services, of Epi Tech, for the downtown, and then for the Clearwater BT building, which is where AIS would be housed in the future. And so in that September board meeting, we were able to achieve and confirm the votes to declare the DO property as unnecessary for educational purposes, and then got approval for the renovations for the other buildings where we would be migrating to. In the October 2019 board meeting, we also approved a survey to take a look at an additional floor within the district, the downtown building. And then in February, March timeframe of 2020, we executed the RFQs, which the members of the board were part of that RFQ process. We selected, or we ranked the firms and then brought it forward in May of 2020, where the CM for downtown campus and then the design build firm for the BT building at the Clearwater campus was approved by the board. And then just this last month, we decided, we brought forth another memo, but at the time the board decided to hold on the migration projects until the DO offer was presented, and then the BT and subsequently the BT and downtown projects were placed on hold until further board input. So we're kind of here today just to discuss everything once again. The utilization, so OPAGA, which is the Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability, they did a really big study across the state of Florida a couple of months into 2019, and they just produced their study probably about a month or two ago. And these are the major items that they pulled for St. Petersburg College as far as utilization is concerned, so I figured that this would be very important information for you to know. But our average classroom utilization across all of our campuses is approximately 50%, so it stayed pretty much the same that we were speaking to in the last board meetings. There's a peak utilization on Tuesdays between 9 and 11 at 60% utilization, and then 61% occurring on Wednesdays. The classroom seats are occupied an average of 9.6 hours a week, which is less than the system average of 11.8 and less than the Division of Florida College expectation of 24 hours. And then the college has about 38% of the total space dedicated to offices compared to the Florida College system of 30% of office spaces. So I think that we're doing a great thing here with moving forward with the migration plan. We obviously have sufficient space, and then we're also looking to see how we can consolidate and minimize some of these office spaces that we're currently overbuilt in. So this slide is going to present, I'm going to present the overall project timeline and what it looks like going forward. So in the August board meeting, I would love to bring forward some type of a board memo reapproving the renovation projects for both downtown and the Clearwater BT project. Obviously, the more that we delay the approvals, the more of an impact it's going to have on the overall timeline. And if we do approve it in August, then I suspect that I will be able to bring before the board a GMP and with that you will be able to approve by the October board meeting, okay? And then we are also expecting completion of the renovation projects that are occurring at the Epitech building by February of 2021. By March of 2021, we're expecting the completion of the in-house construction renovation for Epi Services. And by May of 2021, we're estimating completion of the construction for the 3rd and 4th floors at the downtown center. And subsequently, the BT building is going to take a little longer with expected completion of October of 2021.
I asked Diana to go back in history for Trustee Kidwell. I believe you asked for that as well, Madam Chair, that we start from the beginning. And so that is why she went all the way back, just in case you guys
I was
were
wondering.
Yeah.
So since Diana went back and really recapped, I won't spend much time on these slides, but I just wanted to highlight some of the fiscal benefits of the DO migration. So back in September of 2017, one of the phases for the budget realignment was to look at our physical footprint and our facilities. So there were two main areas in that plan phase. One was increasing our facility rentals, which we did by 70% that following year. Of course, in 1920, COVID happened, and that was not the case. But we still have restructured a lot of our rental models. And the second major piece of that phase was surveying the building space, which Diana spoke of. And then just to, again, highlight quickly, we engaged into the agreement with Seville's. We looked at our operating costs and determined we would be able to save about $450,000, also save in our energy and utility costs, and then saving for any building maintenance costs. Overall, just conservatively being able to save a little over $500,000. And then some of the other benefits, which Diana highlighted on some of them, were it would have no negative impact on students. The property is marketable, which is why we put it up for sale, and also addressing the underutilization rates and, again, the oversized data center because of the technology model is changing. Also wanted to just note providing opportunity for growth. Again, moving to the epicenter of St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg College would be in the downtown area and be a part of that synergy of business that's happening in that area. I also think it would be a strategic place for the foundation to be located for the same reasons. And then also the other benefit was to, again, as I mentioned, there's $450,000 worth of maintenance that we would be able to save, knowing that the state over the last few years have been decreasing our PICO, and for soda, we have not received any in the last 2 years. We need to also be saving for deferred maintenance and things like that. So here I just wanted to remind you of the $5 million that was budgeted in the fiscal year 1920, and also just note that the sale of the district office building can only be used for capital projects. So we wouldn't be able to use that for any operating fund costs. And next, to the district office building sale update. And so in January of 2020, the sign went up, the building was for sale. In March, the sealed bid opening deadline closed. At the time, we did not receive any bids. Between February up through July, we had 7 property tours of folks looking at the building. And on July 21st, we received an offer on the building. We are currently now in negotiations with the seller on this offer, and we hope to, in the next board meeting, bring the offer, a copy of the contract, and request approval for the sale of the building.
Good job.
All right,
Thank you.
okay. So next, Diana, we're going to
Ms.
look
Hunt,
at.
can I have one point of clarification?
Yes.
Is it just the 1.5 million that was originally from PICO that has to be used for capital improvement costs, or is it the entire piece that we eventually bring in as revenue?
What the state invested from a sale, we have to reuse that for
Right.
capital
Okay,
improvement.
got it. Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the downtown parking assessment update.
So I'm going to start on this one. I would have to say a little less than a year ago, we received an opportunity to have a partner with parking maintenance for downtown St. Pete, Midtown, and for the Palladium. And we did receive a P3 offer, and we did not take that offer and thought it would be better to do an RFP. And over time, it was done in January or February. And then the leader at the time of administration took another job. COVID happened, and nothing happened. Nothing went out, nothing was done. So what I would propose before we do a presentation is that we go back and we look at the whole thing and start over. That's my recommendation, and we bring it back to the board. That's my recommendation, Trustee Givens.
So with that, when you say start over, so are we going to go and solicit proposals?
No, what we received was a P3 from a company that was willing to help us with parking at downtown Midtown, downtown Palladium. The parking help was basically, they were going to help us with an electronic system that folks can use their swipe and pay to park. If you're an employee, you wouldn't have to pay, and sort of help us maintain that.
Yeah, or students.
Or students. And for the Palladium, it would be the same. For the times that we were not in session and there were no classes or parking spaces were available and students, weren't using them, this company would do sort of like a cost sharing. If I'm saying it wrong, it's like a cost sharing.
Revenue sharing.
At the time, we were working on the Collegiate High School, which may have had a little bit more of 60 more drivers, plus the movement from, DO, plus we were trying to build new programs, and we were just really not, I think in a good position to address parking at that time. But we want to go back and look at this again to see if this is going to work. At the Palladium, there's an opportunity for us to have a P3 to build a parking garage. So we've got some things in the mix. I would just like to start it over and come back to the board on this if possible.
So, Madam Chair, yeah. I would support that, Dr. Williams, but I would just ask one thing. In this world of parking, it's just like anything else that we do. Again, I don't try to sell beer because I don't know how to sell beer. There are experts, there are people that do this every day. We were in an agreement, just so for the board's purposes, we were in an agreement, and I won't say the person's name because everybody knows the individual, with our parking garage in downtown St. Pete, where we were generating no funds, and the other company was keeping all of the funds. And there was an opportunity for a real parking company to come in, assess our parking, give us all of the benefits of having a real parking garage, cameras, entry systems, and how you get in and out, and the whole 9 yards. They could track what was there, and what they thought at that particular time was that there was, along with the parking garage at the Palladium, that there was a lot of opportunity in non-peak hours and events where we are not a part of, Grand Prix, the pier now. There's always somebody looking for parking that the college could generate more revenue out of those spots that were available while not impacting the our students or our faculty and staff and other people that need to utilize spaces. I guess I am all for going back and looking at it and starting over, even on the P3 garage stuff. But I would like us to actually go back and engage the company and do the P3 process right. I guess, when I had my discussion with Dr. Williams about it originally, they were saying, well, we're going to do an RFP. Well, we weren't generating any money before, so evidently we don't know anything about parking. So how are we going to do an RFP about something we knew nothing about? So I guess I would like for us to sit and talk to, I would like for us to really start to use the P3 process, to be honest with you. They're experts, we benefit from it. P3 does not, we can still control our own destiny in a P3 process, right? You put it out there, the people bid, the people come in, that we say, okay, we're accepting this in a P3 process. It allows for other companies to come in and try to match that offer. And in fact, it's a better process because we don't spend 3 months writing an RFP. They can see what the other people bidded and see if they actually can beat that price. And they bid on it, and then we go and say, oh, well, we want to use this company. At that point, we still have the opportunity to negotiate with the company we accept. So I agree with you in terms of going back. I have a meeting, so that's why I wanted to ask Madam Chair for this moment to be able to say this. I don't care who we use. I just think that we got to get smarter at the college about how we do things and stop thinking that we can do everything. In business, nobody does everything. Nate doesn't make the bottles that the beer goes in; he buys it and he's from somebody because that's not his business. He makes the beer, and so I just let's be careful about always trying to corral everything under the college's umbrella, and we want to control it and do it. We don't know. We don't have any idea. If I ask Ms. Diana, who's your parking expert on your staff? She probably doesn't have one. There's going to be areas that we have blind spots. I just want us to be careful about always trying to fill it with somebody at the college or some group at the college, because we can't. Nobody can, or nobody. That's how business operates. We don't make Tootsie Rolls at Amscott. We buy them.
Right. No, I think we hear you, and I think Dr. Williams' recommendation to go back is appropriate. I don't know that we need to waste any more time today, because I think the bottom line is we have movement forward to deal with the DO migration plan over the next 60 days. That is going to dictate our parking needs in these other locations. There's also been a complete change in circumstances since last September when we received this first offer with respect to what our class schedule is, where it's located, the fact that the Palladium's not even operating, all sorts of things like that. So I appreciate you all bringing this forward today, and I know that was responsive to the trustees' request to deal with it. But I think that it would be better, and that maybe in conjunction with this, we had a presentation last year, 18 months ago, not in detail, but just the fact that P3s were available. I myself am not thoroughly aware, nor do I need to be, the difference of from a purchasing process standpoint between a P3 versus an RFP versus what our legal obligations are among those things, to know what our options are. So I think as part of this, perhaps we can ask Ms. Gardner and Ms. Hunt's team to, even if it's just via email prior to a meeting, give us kind of a crib sheet on, hey, when we're doing things, to your point, because we have a lot of conversation and there's a lot of things, people in the community who say you should do a P3. Well, a P3 means 3 partners, and we're one, a private company's another. Who's the third, and what's the scope of it, and how much money, or is it just our land? All of those things. So even if we can just get a little crib sheet on that, I think it would be helpful to all of us in the community when we get asked questions about, hey, do you want to do this? I know I get called regularly about our real estate and how we should want to partner in P3s, and I am happy to date to feign ignorance on the whole situation, but I probably need to have a bit more information. So that's all I would ask.
The only thing I would add is that could we also in that email have what projects across the state are successful P3s at community colleges?
Oh, that's a good research.
So
project.
that when you look at them, because when people don't know that Florida, what's the one on I-4 there, Nate?
Valencia?
No, Florida.
Oh, Florida Polytechnic.
Polytech?
Was a P3.
Yeah.
And Miss Ava, I want to call her Gibbons.
Parker.
Parker, who's the president down at Palm Beach State, was very active in making sure that was built. And it was a P3 based upon Senator Alexander's family giving the land. And then, so there are things that we see every day that are P3s that are successful. We just don't know it. So I would ask if you would also research and find out what projects are P3s across the state that have been successful in the state and the community college system, so that we can also, see that it's a way to do it, that it exists, and that's all I
Yeah,
ask.
absolutely, and I appreciate, I think that what I hope the board can convey to you all is, in my opinion, I think you have a supportive board who is on board with this footprint reduction and physical modifications we've been talking about. And I think, in my opinion, it's become only more clear in the past 4 months, since we've transitioned to even more virtual learning than we had before, how necessary it is for us to reduce our footprint for efficiency's sake, but also from a budget sake. So I don't want anybody in your department, Diana or Janet, to hear anything different than that. I think we're all fully committed to those types of steps. It's just a matter of when I complimented Ms. Hunt before on not just sticking her finger in the dike and planning forward, I think in these situations, we have a tendency to say, oh, wait, let's stop and make sure that our plans forward are still should be our plans. So thank you both so much for that.
Good job.
Thank you.
That's it.
I believe that's it. Is there anything anybody else would like to discuss before we adjourn and reconvene next month? We have a busy August and September
Yeah.
agendas. We will intend to meet in person, and don't forget ribbon
Gibbs.
cutting at St. Pete Gibbs for the new
Yep.
Student Center in August. So with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.